Hi everyone, I am back with a video. This time it's about thermal injuries, whether these are hot or related to heat or whether they're related to cold. Um, so let's get started. The first one is the mild one of the heat-related thermal injuries, and it's heat cramps. This is basically very fatigued muscles, large muscles that kind of cause muscle contractions. Is commonly seen in athletes. You have short and intense contractions. You can have nausea, you can have tachycardia, pallor, weakness, and some sweat. The I relate these as my kids that play football or maybe you do track and then after running for a while and sweating, you might have some leg cramps. Here, the treatment is to rest and replace your fluid loss through your sweat and electrolytes like sodium and potassium. And this can be done through sport beverages like, Gatorade or what's that other one, Powerade. And in kids, you could do, or some people drink Pedialyte as well. You might elevate the extremity. You might do some gentle massage and some analgesics like a little bit of Advil or Tylenol. And then you want to teach the client to avoid extreme activities for 12 hours. Notch up is heat exhaustion. So this is kind of like the next level. This is basically prolonged exposure to heat for hours and days. It could be intense activities in hot or humid climates. So I relate this to a hot day here in Texas and 100 degrees and you're mowing the yard. You're going to be fatigued. You're going to have maybe some nausea and vomiting, extreme thirst. You might feel a little confusion, hypertension, tachycardia. You're going to be sweating a lot. So profuse sweating. And your temperature, your body temperature can reach 99.6 to 105.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Here, the key is to move the client to a cooler area. So maybe you go into the house with the AC on, or maybe you get into the shade. Let's say you're at the ballpark watching the Rangers in the uh, mid July, and you have a little heat exhaustion from being out in the heat all day. So maybe you go in and to the shaded area and go grab a little drink or something. So move the client to a cooler area, remove any restrictive clothing. You want to monitor your ABCs, give oral fluids that have electrolyte if there's no nausea. Now, if there's nausea, you might have to give fluids intravenously. Um, and then the most also important thing to also do is cool the body down. And this could be done with maybe a damp, cool sheet over the body or cool, damp rags around your groin area, your armpits, your neck area. So basically, we're cooling down the body temperature this way. We're replacing electrolytes and we're moving you to a cooler environment. And then a degree higher than that, and it's the most serious, it's heat stroke. Now, this one is a failure of the thermoregulatory process of the thalamus. It's considered a medical emergency. This is where your sweating almost becomes dry. So here patients almost stop kind of sweating and or you're sweating very little because you've already sweat everything that you have to sweat. You start having some vasodilation, your respiratory rate increases, you deplete all your fluids and electrolyte. and your body temperature reaches above 105.8 degrees Fahrenheit. You'll have hypertension and tachycardia, and your mental state gets altered. So you'll start being confused, maybe seeing some black spots, and it can lead to coma and potentially fatal. So here we do need to protect that airway, monitor those ABCs, give oxygen at 100%, monitor EKG because it can lead to a dysrhythmia due to the depletion of electrolytes. Um, Give fluids and replace the electrolytes fairly quickly. Remove any clothing, get the client wet and in front of a fan. And it could include putting them in a cool bath or putting ice packs in that groin, armpits, or around the neck. Then you want to monitor the client for rhabdomyolysis, which is the breakdown of the muscle, and it turns the urine kind of tea color. It causes a lot of leg pain and body pain, and it can compromise the kidney by throwing the patient into a kidney failure. So this is kind of like if maybe you are out at the pool in Texas in 102 degrees, you've been there for hours and you start passing out of heat stroke. There are certain risk factors that put someone at risk for these thermal injuries. Our older adults and our babies or young kids are at higher risk. Of course, high temperatures and humidity environments. If you take multiple medications that perhaps can dry you up, like antihistamines or diuretics, because you are excreting all that fluid. Also, beta blockers. If you're mixing it with alcohol or illicit drugs, alcohol dehydrates us. So again, the dehydration will be severe if you're under the sun. Or if you have other diseases like diabetes, coronary artery disease, and obesity. There are more risk factors in page 1612 for you guys to look. Now let's move into the cold one. So the first one is frostbite. Frostbite is whenever these tissues freeze and they start forming these crystals, ice crystals. And, excuse me. So that causes a vasoconstriction of your vessels, decreasing that blood flow, and that leads to edema. Now you have superficial frostbites and then you have deep frostbites. On your superficial could be kind of like your ears, your nose, fingers. This is almost like a maybe you went out to the snow or you've been out in a very cold environment without proper gear or proper shoes, and your skin turns like this yellow, pale to bluish kind of look to it. And then you start feeling the tingling, the numbness, and the burning. So if you have frostbite, you never want to massage the area or squeeze or scrub the area. The edema can turn into like almost like blisters, so you never want to pop those. You want to for sure remove anything that constrict the tissue, like any jewelry or clothing, because you're going to have inflammation and edema. And so if you have, let's say, a ring on your fingers, let's remove it, because then that's going to prevent blood flow. As the edema gets worse, it'll constrict the tissue. You might soak the area in warm water and never pop the blisters, and they could develop in a few hours. So sort of like this. Now this is severe. This is more like deep frostbite. But here your tissue can die, have gangrene, and possibly get your toes, fingers, or whatever amputated. The next one is hypothermia. Now, this happens whenever the body core temperature falls below 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And so, body heat is lost as a radiant energy from the head, chest, and lungs. And so, if you have someone that, let's say, falls into a lake, well, they're completely submerged. And so, in a freezing water, and so when you remove this, you want to get that wet clothing out off of them, put them in a kind of dry area. Maybe submerge them with some warm water, or maybe give them intravenous fluids that are warm. You might have to check EKGs because again, the body doesn't like whenever we are very cold. The heart doesn't like it, and so it can throw people into dysrhythmias as well. Um, some of the signs and symptoms could be trembling, or you can have some confusion. You can have for sure cyanosis or paleness, and you might have low blood pressure and hypoventilation. But pretty much we want to remove the client from that area, maintain the airway, and then kind of warm them up quickly and monitor any heart irritability. Okay, that's it for the thermal injuries, hot and cold. Again, my references are always the book, and I get my images from Google or the book. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.